Okay.
Say something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is the part. Already we're in trouble, Eric. Already we're in trouble.
We'll
wait till Dieter comes back, and we're both going to get pink slips. So
this is great job security for the chief technical officer.
Yeah, I better go over here and see if Sue's trying to tell me that we're not on the air. And okay, so hey everybody, this is Captain Ron and Captain Eric. Notably absent this evening, First Officer Ace Wingman and Chief Technical Officer, accent on the Chief Technical Officer, Derek Stoudinger, who had a late baseball game tonight. So baseball finally kept him away from this. And Eric and I were just joking that the technical end of this will probably get pink slips when he gets back and found out that we didn't know what we were doing. So anyway, we're going to do our best here. This is our weekly show. Welcome tonight to that. And it's for anybody who has a fear of flying, who knows somebody that has a fear of flying, or just plain is interested in airplanes and wants to know what the heck goes on behind the scenes there. So that's what we do every week. And our goal is to help you out there, particularly the fearful flyers, to help you change the way you think about flying. Because it's those thoughts and the stories you develop behind that and the reaction that gives you all the problems. And we're going to touch on that tonight. We have a special guest. I want to remind you again, 1 week from today, we're going to be live for our book launch. And actually, this is a pre-sale launch. So we're going to pre-launch the book pre-sell the book for an Amazon launch next Tuesday, July 24th. And we're going to have a super duper special pricing. We want to get everybody together if you can and get everybody to purchase on that particular day and as tight of a cluster as you can, because then we get some recognition from Amazon, and that's ultimately what we'd like here to get the thing out there and successful. And I think you'll enjoy the book. It's we wrote it to make it a how-to book, so that, and we even sized it so that you could carry it with you conveniently, and you can refer to things while you're flying or while you're preparing to fly. And to help us celebrate this, we have a grand prize, which is an elite custom coaching package with yours truly. And what that means, if you win, after some online coaching, I'll fly out to you, and you and I will fly a round trip flight from an airport that we mutually agree upon. And I'll pay for the whole thing. So you get to coach with me, fly with me, and I'm paying, I'm buying, okay? And we'll even include lunch in that probably. So anyway, so tonight we got our Eric's here with our This Week in Aviation. We got a cute little story about a lady who got confused in the ticket area. And as I said, we have a special guest in Karen Acuna. I have a poll question related to our guest tonight. And we got the 201 class coming up this weekend for anybody who registered, and anybody last minute, if you are going to be in the Phoenix area and you want to get over your fear of flying, come and join us this Saturday, July 20th. Okay, so without further ado, let me see if I can get this thing going here, and let me see, the order that I do this in is, bear with me, I'm gonna share the slides. That is, if I can find the tool. Okay. All right. Well, that didn't work out the way I thought it would. I hate it when my control panel disappears here. Okay, we'll go back. Let me try that again. All right. Okay. All right. You're going to be my co-pilot here, Eric. Let me know if this works out.
All right.
And, okay, and
I'm working on a prop.
Okay. And
I think so. It's going to come up in a second. Yep. There's the stuff. There's the OneNote.
okay. And you should be looking at the screen there.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And I can still see you. And all right. So here we go, folks. This is our show. We got some help here with the slides here. If I can get them to advance. There we go. So here's our show topics for tonight. And we got this new feature too. If you should want to call in and join us, these are the numbers that you can dial, and we can get you live on the air with us. With our ace wingman, we may not be able to find you, but give it a whirl. And again, I'm gonna run through the launch of our book next week, How to Overcome Fear Flying, in our pre-sale offer. And like I said, we really wanted this to be a practical guide to help you get over your fear of flying. So next July 24th, mark that on your calendars. It's going to have exclusive pre-sale pricing only for July 24th. And you'll get free lifetime access to a new masterclass that we're coming out, which is $197 value. All you have to do is purchase the book. And then we also have a pre-sale Kindle version of How to Overcome Fear of Flying. So you'll get a $50 discount for our Fearless Flight Kit. So lots of good things for just purchasing the book. And then, but the real big deal is the sweepstakes. So no purchase required. Just simply going to this link here enters you in the sweepstakes for the drawing. It is transferable, the grand prize, and there are 27 other prizes, which I'll run through here in just a minute. So like I said, you don't have to purchase anything. You get the grand prizes, the elite custom coaching day with me for our graduation flight, plus all the pre-flight coaching that you need leading up to that. It's a $7,500 value, and the sweepstakes will end at midnight, July 24th. And then we will pick the winner. And it is transferable. If you win it and you don't have an issue with fear flying, you can slide it off to somebody else. It is not available in the up in Hawaii and Alaska. We just had to limit it to the lower 48 here. So basically, sharing is caring. So you'll receive extra entries if you refer this link to other people, and you'll get your own unique direct link. So for example, if you when you sign up, you get 1 point, and then for each referred lead who signs up, you get 5 points. So it's like buying extra lottery tickets. And again, you go to this link here, http://flf.link/sweepstakes, and you end up getting your name in the hat. And here are some of the ways that you can share this. You can share it on your Facebook. You can share it on your Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. All these pages where you might have friends that hang out, or anybody that goes and signs up for that, and then you get points. You get points simply for doing this, and then you get extra points if they end up registering themselves. Also includes WhatsApp and Messenger, and then if you complete these activities here, you get extra points as well. So take advantage of this. Again, the grand prize is online coaching leading up to this. And then once I get the person ready, I will fly out to that person, and we'll meet at an airport, and we'll take a round trip flight for their graduation flight. And all of it's paid by me and Fearless Flight. So all that stuff is included, and you get the one-to-one coaching and personalized audio, custom audio track, and the Fearless Flight Kit also is part of the deal there. These are the other prizes. There's 27 other prizes. There's one 3-hour coaching package. You can see the values off to the right. There's one 1-hour coaching package. There's 5 Fearless Flight Kits. There's 5 one-year membership accesses to our new membership site. 5 How to Overcome Fear Flying books, and which is the whole purpose of the sweepstakes. And then 10 Takeoff and Turbulence Guide audiobooks, which is on sale now. So again, last thing I'll mention here, this is the link to the sweepstakes. So if you haven't please go over there and register for the grand prize. If you'd like to be my guest in the future, we're going to do some live coaching on the show coming up. So just send your name and a brief narrative of your history with your fear of flying to me, Captain Ron at FearlessFlight.com. Looking forward to have several people interested in that already. Aviation News Roundup. Okay, let me see if I can bring this up, Eric. Just bring up the web page, and you can talk to that. Let me see. Come on. All right. Where did the web page go? Okay.
It must be there somewhere.
All right, I got it. Here it comes. All right. All right. You see that? Better check yourself. Airheaded woman climbs. I mean, that wasn't very kind to say that to that poor woman. But
no, and I don't know. It was in Europe somewhere. And if she was, I don't know if she's outside in the pavement in a line and they were going up to external air stairs to walk into the, there we go. If they were going up external air stairs to board the airplane, like you see somewhere that not at big airports, but she either on purpose or otherwise got out of the line of people snaking their way out to the airplane, and she got on the belt loader, pushed up to either the forward or the aft baggage compartment, and proceeded up the belt loader into the airplane. And here's this prop I made for you guys, so you get it right in front of the picture. The bag,
is this?
Can you read it?
It does. It's a baggage
compartment does not have access to the passenger cabin.
Oh yeah. So yeah.
This is a very important detail.
But I can actually see how she could make that mistake, you know, if she wasn't familiar with it, because this thing here, she just stepped over this, and then what happens in the video, she didn't realize, the poor lady, she didn't realize that it was going to be quite a jolt because it was moving, and it just knocked her over. She fell on her bum, and a quick thinking agent there turned the belt off, the conveyor belt off, so she was able to recover there. But it was quite a rude awakening for her. So anyway.
Once or twice a year, people will do it on purpose or by accident. And the last one I read about, the baggage compartment, of course, is attached to the airplane. It goes everywhere the airplane goes, and is pressurized and semi-temperature controlled. However, it's very, very dark and very low flow of oxygen turnover in there for fire suppression, in case a fire should break out in there. So it's a high risk deal, but it's possible to ride in there. And the last one I read about was a ramper, a baggage handler in an unnamed airline was working hard, and they got the airplane loaded ahead of schedule, and he was a little tired. And so he proceeded to find a couple nice duffel bags and everything up there to rack out in. And his buddies did not know he was missing. And so they pulled the belt loader, closed the door, and the airplane took off and flew. And so there was quite excitement and sheepishness on the baggage handler's part. It landed in O'Hare. I think it was a couple hour flight or hour and a half flight, landed in O'Hare. But when the baggage guys opened the door there and pulled the belt loaders up, they saw that there was one of their compatriots was in the baggage compartment, and he did not work at that station, that he had arrived there in the baggage compartment because he was sound asleep when they closed the door. And
that's happened over the years. The funniest one that I heard, the ending of it, the variation was what you may not know from just being a passenger is when we have connecting bags, they usually put those in like the forward bin, and so they'll kind of sequester them. So you come in there if there's a connecting flight going to Orlando or somewhere else like that. And so the guy that years ago at another airline I worked for, he was right there awake and sitting there, and he said your Orlandos are in the forward, your Tampas are in the back, and all that. So he made a little humor out of it. But they're lucky because you can die in those things if it was over the water for a long time.
It can work out worse, and as we mentioned, there are fire suppression systems and firefighting systems in the baggage department. But one of the main ones is if there is a fire that breaks out, it'll immediately shut off the ventilation to the baggage compartment, or if for some reason it senses by virtue of particulates or whatever, the safety mechanisms will shut off air circulation in there completely. So you'll run out of oxygen, or you'll have your oxygen content in the atmosphere available be so low it will knock you out or kill you. So you have to have everything normally in a spot of luck to make a trip like that and be just fine.
Yeah. Okay, Eric. Well, let's bring our guest in here in just a second. I've got a poll that I want to take firsthand. So if you're, no matter where you're joining us from, if you would, if you want to answer the poll, put it in the remarks section on or in the comments on YouTube, the remarks on Facebook, and let me see if I can get this to play for us. And, okay. All right, and you'll have to back me up and tell me when that slide comes. If they see the poll slide there.
It's going to come up in a second.
Okay. All right. So when it comes up,
there it is.
One of the things that Karen's going to speak to tonight is about just engaging in this process to overcome your fear of flying. And ironically, this week I've had, I think, 4 people that have made comments either directly on Messenger or on Facebook, expressing their doubts that anything would ever help them. And that's a common expression is, I've tried everything, nothing works. And I would say that, well, you haven't tried us yet. And or you haven't tried the right thing there. So take a look at this question. Have your efforts to overcome your fear of flying paid off? And regardless of whether they have or they haven't, have you tried with Fearless Flight or have you tried something else? So we'd love to have people enter some responses there, and we'll take a look at it and get an idea about what you're like. Again, so right now I'm going to ask Karen to join us, and I'm going to switch the screen back. And with us tonight, we've got Karen Acuna. Karen happens to be a therapist. And one of the things that she does is she helps people overcome anxiety. So welcome, Karen. We've gotten to know each other pretty well. How are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. Excited.
And I really appreciate you coming and bearing your soul and sharing your story with us here. So I'll just throw it out to you. What's just a brief history of what was your history with being afraid to fly? When did it happen? When did you become aware of it? And how did it affect you?
So my fear of flying, I was a frequent flyer. And
okay.
So my fear of flying started about 2 years ago. And we were going to board a plane to go to Orlando. And I just couldn't get on there. And I had they were already on the runway.
Okay.
When I basically told the flight attendant, and I told my husband, who was then my fiance, but I was like, I have to get off this plane.
So just for people out there, because we get that question a lot, what happens if I tell them and we've already pushed back from the gate? Were you actually lined up on the runway, or were you on the tarmac getting ready to pull out there?
I think we had already pulled out. Like they closed it. They had already pulled out.
Okay, so you backed away from the gate and taxied out towards the runway.
And I remember them going, and I may have thought they were already on the runway with me.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it was you were well into the flight there. And how did you identify yourself? Just out of curiosity, that how'd you let them know?
Oh, I did it since I walked on the plane, because I thought it was fine. I was feeling nervous about it before, but then I told the flight attendant that I was really nervous, and she was really sweet. And she just kept saying, like, if here's some ice chips. And so when it was already backing out, I waved her down and I said, you will need a tranquilizer to like, I need to get off this plane now. And
as in a tranquilizer gun.
I was like, I don't think you can give me anything that, and I was nervous, and I was shaking, and she was very compassionate and wonderful. Yeah. I had a good experience with that. She wasn't upset. She wasn't angry. And the pilot turned around and didn't say. So
what they did probably is they just pulled back up to the gate, I'm guessing, and opened the door. Eric, you ever had anybody?
Boy, I don't recall it. I guess it could have happened. I don't recall a gate return like that, and that's one of the things we bring up in one of the articles you've got tonight about panic attacks. Is a great number of the people in the class think they will have a panic attack and it will be horrible, but myself, my friends, and any of my friends, brothers, cousins, buddies have never had a flight where they've I've never heard of anybody having an experience where somebody really did have some kind of a psychological meltdown in the aircraft, and the airplane have to land, go back, deviate, do whatever. But it is it is among the top fears of the people in the classes that will happen to them, even though it's almost unheard of. They're not confident and sure that will happen to them.
So later on, maybe we'll compare, your experiences when you did fly, because spoiler alert, you actually got on an airplane on July 4th and flew for the first time in 3 years. So when you had this, would you call it a panic attack when you were sitting there?
Yeah,
okay.
I knew what they were, but I'd never had experienced it myself.
Okay. And so what were some of your fears leading up to that panic attack? Were you afraid you'd have a panic attack?
Yes, I think
okay.
I didn't hear, but yes, I think.
Okay, and some of the fears that people express are, everybody around me is going to think they're going to flip out because I'm flipping out. Did anybody flip out because you flipped out?
Yeah.
No. Okay, and I dare say that probably no one other than you. Maybe people right close to you, but probably certainly no one knew what you were going through. And because we all internalize it, and one fear is, I'm going to look like a crazy woman, but you don't. It's really an internal thing. It's very intense for you, needless to say. Okay, and we're gonna talk about just some subtleties about panic attacks here just as we wrap this thing up tonight. But anyway, so you got up and got off, and what was it like afterwards? And how did you feel right in that moment that they opened the door and you got off of that thing?
Oh, there's huge relief, like you said.
Right.
There's this just instant relief, and then after, as you walk away, and the feeling of having my husband my husband walk out with me, then it starts to settle in how horrible you feel.
Yeah, and I want to point that out, because if you avoid the flight, the deeper you get into the flight, the more relief you're going to feel. I mean, literally, the same chemistry that came bowling down the hill like a snowball, gaining momentum the further you get into the flight, is now going to melt in an instant, because you are going to be relieved. That pressure is going to go, but it is a double whammy, because man, right after that, now you start feeling like a failure. Most people beat on themselves. So I want to say to anybody out here, if you, regardless of how far into the flight you get, if you get as far as Karen did, or you just get to the airport and you decide not to fly, I recommend people, when we go on the flight this Saturday, I will talk to people about how to exit the flight. I encourage everybody to go with us, get on the airplane. And if you decide that you do not want to, we give you the window on when you can leave without making it a huge disruption, certainly before they close the door for the final pushback. But I tell people, you simply say to yourself, I will do this. Today isn't my day. Okay. And again, that's not our first line of strategy and planning. But I want to do that because I want people to own the decision and feel empowered, even though they may not have gone through the flight there. And that's different than if you feel like a victim, because you won't get the same kind of relief. You'll still get a relief with it, but it'll help you come back the next day. And of all the flights and the classes that I've done, the 301 classes over the years, I've had a half a dozen people not fly, and they've all come back and flown on the next time they came. But I really appreciate you sharing that. So then where did you go after that? What was the plan?
We already had our trip planned and booked and paid for in Orlando. So we drove to Orlando.
Okay.
I mean, it was already a done deal and everything. So we drove the 16 hours from Texas to Orlando. And
Ouch.
I know, my poor.
Ow.
I just want to say we have driven pretty much everywhere in this country because of this within the last 2 years, because I've had to travel some for work and stuff. And he has had to go, like, he's been great. But yeah, we drove. And for the last 2 years, I have driven everywhere. It's terrible.
Yeah. And so what was the catalyst? Why July 4th? Why did you think that I got to do this?
Well, we actually did a trip to California and we drove. And then I had already booked my flight for Phoenix. And then I registered for the class with you guys.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, okay, I even remember telling my husband, like, I don't think I'm going to get on the flight, but we need to try it. And so then this big event was happening in LA with my family and friends in the LA area. I'm from LA. And they were like planning this like unimaginable, awesome 4th of July trip that we don't always have. And they don't know about everything that I've gone through. So they were like, just hop on a plane and get over here. And I just remember thinking, like, I can't do this. But it was like a deal of a lifetime. Like, we couldn't not go, and we couldn't drive for a weekend, with work.
Yeah.
And just having taken this trip. So I remember I went ahead and booked a short flight from like Dallas to Houston, and I didn't get on it. I didn't even go to the airport because I was so anxious and I just wanted relief and I didn't want to deal with it. And I remember that's when I reached out to you and said, like, I don't think I can do this. And I think you were like, I take this on as a challenge. Let's do this. And I can be very honest and say, I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. We've got the tickets to fly to LA, but there's no way this is going to happen. Like, I was pretty like, I'll do the exposure work, but I'm not getting on. So. Yeah.
And we just want to talk about that just a little bit. So, because that is very, very common. And you're not making that up, right? It's like, you can say whatever you want, Ron, but I know right now it's not going to happen. So what changed?
Well, we did coaching. We basically did 3 coaching sessions, but I say like 2 of those were actual like coaching sessions, because the first one was the 15-minute that just kind of went a little bit longer. But we did coaching, and it was really hard for me because I was holding on to the shame that I was working with clients, and I've been doing this for several years of working with clients with trauma and anxiety. And yet I had this phobia of like getting on a plane and being so.
And I remember that vividly myself because you kind of felt like a fraud.
Yes.
Right. And again, people out there, whether they're in the helping profession like you are or not, that's a big deal for people. They just can't get over the fact that they feel like such failures. But that's the biggest thing to get over for most people is let it go. Let it go. It's about the thermostat inside of us that has quit working to regulate up and down when we get excited. It's not allowing us to calm down. And not everywhere, but just this doggone fear of flying. And I found out from other people that they have some other areas in their life, typically that they might have some anxiety as well, like claustrophobia, things like that. But it's that thermostat in there. So anyway, so we started talking, and then describe the transition that
Well, I am going to say that with fear of flying for me, and I think for anxiety and phobias, they're really tied and connected to emotional pain or some type of experience that we've lived through that doesn't always mean a plane. It could be a mechanical thing, but I do think that there's connection, and that was things with me. And so I think coaching with someone that knows exactly, like, has some of that counseling background, but also, which is the only purpose, the main purpose was fear of flying. That was so important to me. And that was, I think there was a part we discussed about regulation. And like, this is a self-regulating issue. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I never really thought of it that way, but I don't know. It was just, the fear was so over magnetized. Like, it was so big that I couldn't even think about regulation. And so, to me, doing the coaching, setting up strategies, and exploring some parts of like why it was connected to that. I remember we discussed if the fear is like creating a space that was safe, like the bathroom could be as, instead of feeling trapped and claustrophobic, my fear was if I feel claustrophobic and we're in the air, I can get up and go to the bathroom, or, you know, create a safety zone. And there was kind of strategies we did there that were really helpful in me being able to get on the plane.
You know, I'll mention quickly, it is about safety. That's what causes our autonomic nervous system to elevate us, because when it doesn't feel safe, it says, hey, pay attention, something's gone. So it grabs your attention and it won't let go. And that's why most people, and I think fear of flying in general, because there's so much trust required to get on an airplane. You have no control over what's going to happen. So that's the ultimate in that, you know, any other place. And that's why people think in their car, oh, I'm okay in a car because I'm in control. That turns out to not be true to a much greater extent than fear of flying, because of all the deaths we have every year in a car. But it's a feeling of safety, and you've got to, so the ultimate cure is you've got to feel like, to be able to bring yourself back and create that safety for yourself. Most of it, I'm not going to say that. It was supposed to happen for most of us when we were little. Literally in the first 3 years of our lives, we were supposed to, when we cried, somebody was supposed to touch us in a loving, caring way, caress us, hold us, gaze into our eyes and bond with us, and use soft, gentle tone of voice. And those three things. And that's literally what I think I do for people. For years, I would ask people, what the hell did I do? They would come back and they'd say, oh man, that was great. You know, the coaching and all that. And I'm like, yeah, but tell me what I did. And I finally realized, you know, studying more about the autonomic nervous system, that that's the kind of exchange we have where you do feel safe and we can talk about and explore. And you could, but you're the one that deserves the courage, because you're the one that had to show up, and you're the one that had to come up with your own insights. And so that's what coaching is all about. So.
And that's the piece for me. It was the emotional piece and the specialization of the flying. So like you were the captain and you know exactly what we were discussing, but you added that emotional component, which I think going into it, I was like, yes, I'll do the coaching. I was very grateful, but I was like, I work with a whole office full of counselors. We're, you know, in the counseling agency. And so it was like, I've talked to them so many times, we've gone into this, yet when I did the coaching, it was so intentional. It was very specific to this. And so I still think, I can't believe that worked. I actually think like, I can't believe that.
Say that again.
It worked.
It worked. Yeah. Because again, like I said, this week in particular, I've had a number of people that wrote in on Messenger and stuff and said, my biggest fear is that it won't work. And I get you, you know, why would I want to pay money, buy a ticket and go through all that only to fail again, you know, but you got to do something different. And I've been doing this long enough, and people like you, Karen, are the ones that taught me, you know. Yeah, I got a lot of experience as a pilot. I got a lot of experience as a counselor and stuff like that. And I did some professional training, but you guys are the ones that told me what it was like and gave me the feedback on what worked. So just briefly, so you got to the airport. How was it? How was the flight over? How was the flight back? And did you ruin your time on the ground like most people say, because you're worried about the flight home?
Well, I thought that was going to happen, but so we got to the Dallas airport, and I remember as soon as we parked our car and got to the thing that takes us, the shuttle, I told my husband, please don't hate me. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. And you talked to my husband, so he was like being extremely supportive. I mean, he was really trying and saying like, you know, if you don't get on, we will be okay if you choose, but you can do this, rubbing my back. You know, he was really exceptionally wonderful. But we got to the airport and I just said, I told myself a lot of positive self-talk and, you know, reassurance of like, I just have to make it through security.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm going to go through with everything. I just have to make it through security. And so we would make it to the shuttle. We made it through security. Then I was like, I just have to get to the gate. And so we got to the gate. And of course I see the plane and I'm like, there is no way I'm getting on that plane. Freaking out. And so I told the lady that I needed to board because, you know, I was feeling pretty anxious. And then I told myself, I'm just going to board. And then if I want to get down, I'm going to get off. Like, so it it was just an entire process of taking it step by step. And then I got to the actual boarding and I talked to the pilots. I asked if I could talk to the pilots, and I actually shared a picture of the pilots. And I didn't get it up there, but it was a great picture. And it's one of the things I make sure, say, you got to meet those pilots. You got to introduce that. They were a huge piece in calming, because I can tell you that my scale went from like a 9 of like anxiety to like a 3 for that time that I talked to them, because they were just telling me like, oh, what's your fear, and who's Captain Ron? And he was like, it was just like talking about it for a little bit, and then the flight attendant was very, very nice and welcoming and very sweet. So I got myself seated on the plane, and I held on to my husband's hand pretty hard, and I tried to just survive. I literally was like, I just have to survive the takeoff. I just have to survive it. And, if I don't, so we did. I went ahead and I closed my eyes, and I just remember being up there, and my husband, like, we're up already and we're in the air. And it was amazing that I even recorded. I told my husband he wasn't allowed to open the window, because I was like, I don't want to see the outside and see that we're trapped. Right. And I remember I opened it, and it was just surreal that I was doing this. I mean, it was a moment of just, I started crying, because I was like, I cannot believe this is actually happening. So we flew. I mean, when you get off after you've completed a plane, I don't know if there's like a sweeter feeling of actually getting off a plane that you haven't flown yet after not flying for so long. It was the best feeling ever. I enjoyed the time with family. It wasn't until the day of coming back that I started to feel a little bit anxious.
Yeah, and I want to interrupt real quick. There's a great question that came in, and I'll talk about that at the end. I just want to let them know to hang in there. But so it didn't ruin your trip down there. You get back to the day, and this is another thing that's important. You had anxiety when you got to DFW for the trip over to LA, and you had anxiety on the way back. But tell me the difference, in the anxiety then versus the day you got off in Orlando several years prior to that.
Oh, compared to I had anxiety I just feel like the thing that I was doing was I had determined that I was going to go through with this.
Okay.
Even if I did not fly, like I was going to go through this entire process. So yeah, when I got if my husband would have said, if you don't want to do this, let's turn around, I would have taken that in a second, and I would have
Right.
But I really, really pushed through.
So this is the part I want to emphasize. And, if this wasn't your experience, let me know. But you said, either unconsciously or consciously, I'm going to stay with this because it's not going to last forever. I've been told, right? Because you couldn't have got to that point unless you had some belief. So, but it wasn't, it may have been things that I said and insights that you had, but you were the one that said, I'm going to hang in there. I'm going to expect the anxiety, and I'm going to try some of these things that I did. And that's why I say it's so important when you go to that gate to identify yourself, get on the airplane. I recommend boarding early and then talking to those pilots, because you need to make that connection. That connection has nothing to do with that flight that day. It has everything to do with your autonomic nervous system calming you down, seeing those people. The people that control your life. And that, look at Eric, who could not look at that face and say, man, I see that, I'm totally comfortable. But it's really, really important. And that is the number one thing, the reason why I tell people, go up there, make yourself vulnerable to the pilots and connect with them. That is what calms that anxiety inside you down. And without that, it doesn't matter what happens. And then when you come back, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but on the way back, it sounds like the anxiety was much shorter in duration.
Absolutely. It wasn't the day I started feeling it, but I wasn't too caught up until we got to LAX. And that's when I was like, okay, but I kept telling myself, I had already done this.
Yeah.
The anticipation, I can't stress that enough, is far worse than the flight.
Yeah.
Far worse. It was.
And every day I get at least one question. Captain Ron, what do I do for anticipatory anxiety? You do the other work. That's what you do. Anticipation it's the downside to being human and being able to look for patterns in our environment and predict where danger is going to come up, right? I mean, that's why we have a warning system built into us, because we do want to know that if I walk around that door, there might be somebody that's going to jump on me, or if I put my hand on that stove, it's going to be hot. So we need that kind of mechanism inside of us, but it's also the one that makes up all those stories that says, what about this? What about that? What about that? And that's what anticipatory anxiety is all about. It's about worrying about something that's never going to happen. Mark Twain had a famous quote, and he said, all the things he's worried about that never came true, and it makes your life miserable there. So anyway, so what's in the future for Karen and Noah?
We're hoping to be there. We have one work thing with my husband, but we're hoping to be there in Phoenix, and we are flying for October. We are scheduled to fly to Disney World for the first time in 2 years.
Cool.
So we don't have to drive.
So the question that came in was, did you take another class with me? And the answer is no.
I didn't.
But you are actually thinking about coming up to Phoenix this weekend and taking the class with us, because that was really what your first goal was. But then you said, I got to get on this flight going to LA. And I said, do some coaching. We can do this. We can do this. And people don't realize, I live in the Phoenix area. Not many people will come to Phoenix on an airplane from a far distance away to go to a class on how to get on an airplane and fly a long distance. The longest we had was Fort Walton Beach,
Florida.
Yeah. And they came.
They drove here and they drove back.
Yeah.
That was stunning.
And we've had one from Detroit. I've had several people that have, and I've had a couple of people that I've actually coached to fly into Phoenix for the class. But the majority of people that I've worked with in the 31 years I've been doing, they're like in Sydney, Australia, or all over the country, and they can't come to the class. And so people wanted to know, I think they thought maybe you were a plant here, and she went to the class and then you did that. No,
and which is so surprising to me, because I did not think that it was going to work. And it's I didn't think, just coming from talking to the therapist that I work with and I was like, okay, I'll do it. But
yeah. And I feel for people, because that is one of the biggest fears. It's not about anything, but why would I do something that's not going to work in the long run anyway? And they've been disappointed, and I get that. It makes perfect sense to me. If I were you and I thought that it wasn't going to work for me, I wouldn't bother either. Why get your hopes up and then feel devastated again? But it does work, and there are things that you can't anticipate. So thanks, Karen. I really appreciate you joining us tonight, and I really hope we see you this weekend.
Hope you make it. Thanks, Karen. That was awesome, especially with your therapist background. Talking about that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
you can see with us.
I don't know how much more. I mean, this was awesome. I don't know how much more you want to talk about it. I don't know if you have a clock in your stove, but do you see what time it is?
Yep.
Okay. Up to you.
We're going to wind this up. All I want to do is just say I was going to say a few quick things about panic attacks. There was an article in the online that I saw that led me to another one that says what to do in the event of a panic attack. And I won't badmouth it, putting it up there, but it was kind of questionable to me. And it because the implication is what if I'm, I get on the airplane, I have a panic attack, and I've not done anything to prepare myself for it. The chances are you're not going to be successful. It's the old definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. And that's what makes you a hero of mine. Another one of my many heroes, Karen, is because you did do something different despite the feelings that it wasn't going to do any good. And it's such a big breakthrough for people. That's what I love. I love to sit here. Eric's seen this, first time Eric joined me on a flight with people, he's like, oh my gosh, and he's always commenting about, people falling asleep on the way back on the return leg of the classes we do. It's just incredible. So panic the panic, first of all, it's not visible from the outside. It is your own private hell that you experience. And you've been there, one of the worst after they've actually pushed back, said, I need you to take me back to the gate and let me off of this thing. You survived and you came back. So that's a double pat yourself on the back from the way I look at it. So anyway, okay. Well, thanks again, Karen, for coming and sharing. And Eric, you and me this Saturday with the whole crew out here south of the airport in Phoenix, cleared for takeoff 201. If you haven't signed up or registered and you have any thoughts about doing it and you're going to be in Phoenix, we would love to see you. Otherwise, we'll be coming back next week, the day of the next show. We're going to be doing the launch. So the next week's show will be all about the book launch, trying to get people to register and put your name in a hat for the grand prize and the other 28 prizes that we're offering there. Help us make this a bestseller right off the bat. It's really cool. And if you're not familiar with this, Amazon allows you to actually pre-sell a book that is coming out and not yet available for publication. We're not taking your money and running. And the amount that we're taking is going to be very small compared to what the regular price is when we launch it on September 7th. But it is a pre-sale, and we get all the bragging rights if we get enough people to come on and purchase the book during the July 24th launches that the events that we're going to do. So you're going to be there, Eric? You'll be there at night probably.
Yeah. Well, for sure Saturday, and I think next Tuesday is a 90% thing.
Yeah.
And should we just leave our itinerary open, or should I talk about missed approaches or go-arounds at all that we might bring up next week, or should we just leave it and see what falls out?
Let's just leave that for next week, since we've already gone pretty long on this thing. So anyway, so next week we'll be freelancing and talking about things and trying to get people to help us get the book out successfully. And other than that, thanks, Eric. I appreciate you showing up again and helping out. And so far, I don't think Dieter will be able to fire us. So with little,
Well, we stayed on the whole time, broke the record, and next week we'll talk about some real flying with a real plane. See how happy that is. Look at this, Ron. I wish you had one of those. You must be green with envy.
Collector's item. Collector's item. So anyway, all right, everybody. Thanks. It's been another episode of Fearless Flight Live, and we thank you for showing up. We'll see you again next week. Come back and help us with the book launch. Bye-bye.